And we are live. Hi. Howdy.
Welcome back. Look at us. There's 4 of us in the audience this time. Wow.
Well, not the audience.
I mean, not the audience. Hosting. Yeah.
Yes. So it is Wednesday, April the 2nd, 2025. Hi, this is the vBrownBag. This is what you're watching because you're here watching. Before we get too far along, I've got a few show notes to take care of. Let me throw this up on this stage. We're going to be talking with Amanda Ruzza tonight. I'm pretty sure I just mispronounced her last name, which I will get corrected shortly. She's going to talk to us about how to learn like a rock star. If you like the content here, feel free to join us online. We are at vBrownBag on YouTube, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, probably on LinkedIn. We're all over the place. Join us. Talk to us. We like to have friends. So yes, thank you. How is everyone tonight?
At some point, we will figure out how to do this like
professionals. I never do the buttons right. I don't know why.
It's way too much fun. We're button clickers. We like to click buttons. So whenever we see a bunch of buttons, we have to click on all of them. Amanda Ruzza.
Get it right.
Every time it'll be some brand new way that we've screwed it up.
Mm-hmm.
So this evening, Amanda, you and I had a conversation at Hashicorp last year. You were there for the builders launch. It was the builders. What was the name of it? I forget the name of it.
Well, I'm grateful to say that I was blessed with the Hashicorp scholarship.
Oh, that's right.
And then I was part of the group that was there just hanging out, learning, absorbing all that information. And before the conference started, the folks organizing the event and that were responsible for the scholarship, shout out Jasmine and Alexandra.
Holla.
They invited us to have lunch at Rosa Mexicano. And then after we went to the museum, and that's how we met.
That's right. We took you guys to lunch, and you and I sat across the table from each other. And at some point, the topic of music came up, and I was like, "Oh, I like listening to music." And you're like, "Oh yeah, you casually mentioned that you might play a little bit," and so we dug into that a little bit. And it turns out you are one of the there's a book chapter written about you. You are one of the top jazz bassists alive today. And there's the book and
cool.
And then you also mentioned that you've played with a lot of very famous musicians, and I was like, have you? And I just said, oh, have you ever played with Prince? Because I love Prince. And you're like, oh yeah, sure, I've played with him. And that's how our magical friendship started. No, I'm kidding. So welcome to the show. During our conversations, I asked you, if you are this amazing, renowned bassist, what are you doing in the tech sphere? And I would like for you to answer that question here, and also talk about all the things that you want to talk about from the study perspective. I could sit here and pick your brain for our audience all night, so I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna shut up after a couple of questions.
Please do it.
I also want to have.
I like the brain
picking.
I like the brain picking. It sounds so fun,
So, go ahead.
Do you want to hear the TLDR, or do you want to hear the? Okay, I'll tell you the TLDR. I got paid $50 when I was 13 years old to play a gig, and everybody in the band was 50 years old, and I was 13. In the city of São Paulo, which is a city with 25 million people. And I don't know what happened, that out of all the bass players in that place, I guess nobody was available, and they called me. And obviously I sounded horrible because I was 13 and I didn't know what I was doing. But somehow they kept calling me. So I started playing music professionally when I was 13. And I'm grateful for everything that I did. I still do it. I still play music professionally. But I got to a point that, just being honest, I didn't feel intellectually challenged. Even though when it comes to music, it's a little bit endless, just like in tech. But it got to a point that I could be like, okay, I can transcribe another impossible saxophone solo, or I can write this really difficult stuff, but that's not fulfilling my heart. And doing certain things, like, for example, going to Nicaragua on a tour sponsored by the U.S. State Department, where you go to remote places with no cell phones, just give music workshops to young adults with mental disabilities, and just seeing the joy of them. That was fulfilling my heart. Just helping people in really terrible conditions, like things that weren't like very glorious, or they didn't pay much or whatever. Those things were fulfilling my heart a lot. And also, I fell in love with Python, and I fell in love with this idea that we can build and break things and fix things, and it's okay. And I don't know, I got into this, and I think it's awesome, and it correlates with music a lot, because once you master that, get over that really difficult hump of how can you do this really difficult technical thing, which is maybe playing an instrument or writing code or whatever, all of a sudden the musical instrument is a consequence of your ideas and your creativity, and the same thing is the code. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you am I a Python person, am I a Terraform person, it doesn't really matter. Like, the code, the language is just a consequence of your creativity. So I find this so fascinating. That's all.
I feel like we've missed a hop here.
Okay.
So you're playing on stage as a bassist, and then all of a sudden you fell in love with Python. Were you on stage when you fell in love with Python?
No.
It was a song about importing anti-gravity, Chris.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Where did Python come in? Where did that come from?
Okay. So, just real talk here. I never could afford a computer in my country. And that's why I'm very passionate about supporting Latin American people, because I know how hard it is if you are not an American, or if you don't live in Europe or whatever, if you live in Latin America or in Africa or in Southeast Asia, or whatever you want, to be able to say, I can buy a computer to try to learn how to code. And even if I can afford a computer, I don't know English. Most courses are in English, all that stuff. So I could never afford that, but I always thought it was cool when I lived in Brazil, right? Then, so I never had a computer. Then I got a scholarship to move to the United States to do music, right? Then I did it for a little bit. Then I dropped out of the college. Then I went on a touring band, and I toured all over the world. And then I applied to other schools, and I got a full scholarship to go to the new school in New York to do a double bachelor's. And I still never had a computer, but then eventually I got a computer. But the point is just that I never had the chance to try these things before in my country. And then at some point, one day, shout out to Code Academy, and maybe not, or how dare them, or in the New York State, because they were giving away data science courses for 3 months, data science courses for free for Code Academy. And the curriculum was, you gotta do Python, SQL, whatever. And technically, supposedly, according to that, after 3 months, you were a data scientist, which obviously, that's not happening, right?
Right.
So I got stuck in the whole Python. I was like, this stuff is awesome, but I didn't even have a computer. I was just doing it out of my iPad.
That's amazing.
And I was like, this stuff is so great. But I always thought I was never going to be able to have a career out of it, because I almost had to repeat 8th grade because of math. I was never a good person at any STEM subject in school. So I thought, like, if you want to be good in tech, at coding or whatever, you have to be good at math. You have to understand these things, you know. And then later, when I was really deep on studying Python, I went back had to study all like those computer science things.
Yeah.
And then I had to relearn math, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to do it anyway. But then I realized that the issue is not that I was dumb, because I thought I was dumb. Is legit, I think I had bad teachers, because there are some incredible math teachers on YouTube that they explain this really difficult stuff. And I was like, oh, this stuff is so easy. It makes sense. Why did not know? So, you know, I'm just saying this to share with the people, because sometimes we think that we are dumb or we suck. Like, even though we don't say it to the world, we have that voice inside of our heads that says that, right?
Yep.
It's just
100%.
we didn't connect with the right teacher. And
Yep.
well, anyway, that was the Python story.
Actually, that's a really good segue into your topic. You wanted to talk about how to learn like a rock star. So
Yep.
let's dig into that, because that's why everybody came here, because our rock star, Amanda, and it is Ruzza, right? Is it Ruzza?
Well, I want you to think about the word pizza.
Ruzza. Amanda.
Think
Ruzza?
about, like, pizza has 2 Z's, but you say pizza.
Yeah.
Ruzza.
And I say Ruzza. That's it.
Ruzza.
Yeah.
Oh, Amanda
Ruzza.
Ruzza. Okay. Thank you. Both Jamie and I
You're
both
welcome.
screwed it up.
Don't worry, but everybody does. You're not supposed to know it.
I should have asked before the show, and I didn't. So
Who
thank you
cares?
for,
I didn't provide you that. If it was really important, I would have told you. So,
Yeah, I had it right all the time.
of course.
Of course you did, Roger. I would expect nothing less. So, Amanda, you were telling us when we were chatting about this the other day that you had some slides. Did you want to share them, or did you want us to?
I can share them, but the whole thing is just like, through this cloud journey and like being on the job, I started to paying attention. At the beginning, I was failing miserably, and then and the reason for that is because I was following the traditional route, right? You read the docs, you read the white papers, and you watch the lectures, and maybe you take a practice test, and then you take the test, and nothing was clicking. Then one day at this company I was working, we had a learning and education person in the company, and he did a session with us. And I think nobody paid attention at that thing. Nobody took it for real, but I kind of did. So we all had to do this test, and that would ask a bunch of questions of us, and it would assess our learning styles. And once that thing came out, the person that was doing the test, the learning development person, shout out to Nevin Kumar, you're awesome. He said, the reason why you're struggling is because you're not following your learning style. You are a person that you're not going to be learning by following too much of the theory in reading. Even though I have one of my college's degrees is in literature, like I can read a Dostoevsky all day long, right? But he said, you need to be, you're an auditive learner, and you're a practical learner. You need to be doing labs. You need to be. So once he said that, I was like, you know what? Let me follow his lead. And then I realized that my issue is that I was absorbing all this information, but I was unable to visualize things inside my head. And that's something that people forget about. Sometimes you read a line of code, but can you imagine what that code, can you visualize what the code inside your head is doing, right? And when you go to music school, everybody has to go through this super horrible, painful class called ear training. And the idea is that a teacher at a college level, they will play the most impossible, difficult things to you, not very fast, but like very difficult for the brain to comprehend. And without having your musical instrument, you have to write the music. And you're graded on that. And the way you practice it is literally you spend hundreds of hours in a practice room with a partner or with a buddy. And sometimes now they have apps, but it's literally this. Listen to the sound, listen to the distance of the sounds. Close your eyes. Imagine the sound traveling. Think about it. Then write it on the paper. And I said, well, what if I don't start applying this ear training stuff into tech? If I watch a lecture or if I listen to a lecture, I stop, I imagine the architecture or what the code is doing. I think about it. And if I talk to myself, explain to myself in my own way and how I can recreate these things. All of a sudden, everything got super easy. And I started getting all the certifications. And I had this requirement to take 5 certifications in 2 years. And I ended up taking 7 in 9 months or whatever. And then people were like, why are you doing all this stuff? You don't need it. And I was like, because this stuff is so fun. I might as well just keep going. Then I slowed down a little bit because I said, okay, I also want to be doing projects and stuff. That stuff is important. But the point that I'm trying to say here is that even if we analyze some of like those incredible architects, right? And Chris, you worked in consultancy, you know, it's when do you say this guy is really amazing? It's when like you're in the middle of this like super crazy debugging or architecting session and this client asks you the most impossible, difficult question. And these amazing architects, they have this ability to, on the fly, think about the super difficult question that the client asks on the moment and explain it in the most clear way with all that calm and ease. The thing is that we're not thinking about this, but in his subconscious mind, what is his brain doing? He is visualizing the problem that the client asked, and then he's visualizing the solution, and he's thinking, okay, this is what's happening, this is what he needs, and then he's explaining in a way that even a 5-year-old can understand. And that's why those guys are like the principal architects. That's one of the reasons, right? What if us as students, what if we can slow that process down, just like in ear training class, right? What's the goal of ear training class? We're going to make you try to understand the most difficult music without you having your instrument. So when you're playing at a gig and someone throws down this impossible, atonal, crazy stuff, you can react and you can follow them. That's jazz improvisation, right? That's the beauty of musical composition. But at some point, you have to slow that down. And that's when I realized if I slow this down with learning cloud, with learning code, it has to work. And it did work. So that's what I wanted to share with the people. And then maybe, Damien, you started the slides. I can share the slides or... We can go anyway.
Go ahead and share your slides so that you can click through them. I accidentally brought it up.
You should.
That was me. Do you want me to bring it up or do you want to bring it up?
I don't care. I can. Let me see. How do I do this?
Your preference.
Share the screen. Okay, I need to allow this. Okay. So this is my presentation. Also, one of my mission statements in my life is to kill people by death of PowerPoint. So I know you folks didn't come here to listen about the music. You came for the value. So you had to pay your tax, which is you need to die out of boredom by watching my horrible PowerPoints. Sorry, folks. Anyway, who am I? This is me. I, recorded some records, produced some people, and played some gigs. At some point, I used to have a record label. I did music marketing in PR, and then I got into Agile Scrum. I fell in love with Python. And then I got tons of certifications, love writing blogs, writing code, whatever. the moment I'm working as a service architect at Datadog, and I'm super passionate about working out, martial arts, fitness, foreign languages, and I'm still a musician, play music on the side on the weekends. Love it. Still doing the crazy avant-garde jazz, the Broadway shows, all that fun stuff. So my goal with this presentation today is to help you understand, don't copy me, but maybe I can give you some tips on you to figure out how can you make studying these really difficult things easier and more effective, especially because everybody has a life. I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I have my musical life, right? And some folks, they say, okay, I also have a full-time job, but I'm married, I have kids. Well, we all have 24 hours in the day. So if we can be efficient with our studies, then we can get things achieved and still enjoy the rest of the time of the day. That's the point. But before you even say, I want to study this thing and I want to do this thing, you need to figure out your why. Why do you want to get the certification? Why do you want to learn this coding language? Why do you want to, I don't know, build this project? Because otherwise, when life comes in the way, if you don't know your why, you're kind of gonna give up. So it's good to figure out the why. I will share my why with you all because I love building things. I think it's super fun. And for me, being able to study these things is a joy. Does any one of you folks have a why they could share? Chris, what's your why?
My why is very similar to yours. I enjoy learning. That's kind of the reason why we've been doing vBrownBag is we like talking to people that enjoy learning. We like spreading knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I also like getting paid really well too.
So, yeah, of course. Duh.
But that is a nice benefit to it. It's not the reason why I do it. If the position didn't pay as much, I would still be doing this because it's something that I truly enjoy. The architecture, the design, building things in the cloud. It's figuring out tough problems is really, really fun for me.
I agree. What about you, Damien?
The passion for the technology is the why. That's what kind of gets me out of bed every morning is being able to do a thing that I enjoy, right? Solving problems, learning new things.
It's so fun, right?
Yeah, it is. And to kind of echo Chris's point, the paycheck is great, right? But me, the passion is more valuable. I've actually made far more money in jobs previously that I was deeply unhappy in. And like at some point, the money doesn't really matter. And I know that probably sounds both privileged and very stupid to say out loud, but like eventually, if you're really unhappy, it's like I don't care how much this pays. I just want to be out, So,
yeah, it's real. It's real.
It is.
What about you, Roger? Do you have a why that you would like to share it with the people?
Yeah, wow. Can I get a PowerPoint for that? So for me, it's always been about learning more, but also I really do like a challenge. And it's nothing worse than going to work every day and you're just not challenged. I mean, if you want to be able to have that creativity and, I've been blessed to be in a lot of different roles that have allowed me to be able to use that creativity and build. So that's for me, that's what it's all about. And I think, I guess passion really kind of puts it into perspective, that one word.
Agree. So the point of me saying this is that if you don't know your why, when life gets hard, you're just going to give up. That's it. Yeah. Okay, then you got to figure out your personal life non-negotiables. For me, they are, I have to every day, no matter what, if there's a snowstorm, if the world's falling apart, I got to get those 10,000 steps. I have to do my meditation before I go to bed. And I have to go to the gym 6 days a week. But Once you figure out your non-negotiables, then later I will show you how I implement my studies in the middle of my non-negotiables, and that makes the thing efficient. But it's important to say, okay, this is what I need to do every day for myself, no matter what. And I think it's important to bring that up. Then the third thing is, as I said before at the beginning, assess your learning style. There are so many tests on YouTube, on Google, or whatever. You can just do it for free. And it's totally worth your time because you need to understand, how does your brain work today? Maybe 5 years ago, your brain was wired in a way that you were learning things differently. But today, how do you learn? Like, our brains keep evolving, keep changing, right? When I got my test result, it was, I am an auditory learner and I am a kinesthetic learner. And how that translates to tech is that I learn better if I listen to concepts and if I do labs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If I love to read, but if I read too much theory and I don't put that in practice, it's gonna get out of my brain. I'm not gonna retain the information. Some people are very visual. They like flashcards. I tried it, but they don't do much for me. But that doesn't mean it's not a good way to study. It's just not good for me. Some people like to draw. Other people like to highlight tons of things. That's how they learn. But if you don't know your learning style, you're not going to be efficient with learning. And this whole talk here is about, how can we be efficient with learning? Because everybody here has a life outside their full-time jobs and their passion of tech, of wanting to get better at what we do. So if you can't get there if you don't understand who you are and how you learn. Very important.
What was the test you took to figure out what kind of learner you are?
If you just Google VARC model learning style assessment, but there are many. I actually tried to find the exact one that I took from my group in my other company, but I couldn't find it because I wanted to.
There we go. VARC questionnaire. How do you learn best? Got it.
Yeah.
I'll post it in the notes too.
If you take one, like they have all those free tests. It's going to take you like 10, 15 minutes or whatever. But it's really good. It's worth it. Yeah. So that's the learning style. And then you're collecting information, right? In your brain, you're like, okay, this is my why. These are my non-negotiables. This is my learning style. We're just getting information about ourselves. And then you gotta be realistic with your schedule and apply those SMART goals, right? If you only have 30 minutes a day, like, I'd rather you commit to 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, than say, I'm gonna cram this information for 3 hours on a Saturday. Because the truth is that you're not gonna learn anything. Or don't say, every day after work, I am gonna drop 4 hours a day. It's not gonna happen. It's not feasible. Just, or if you just had a newborn baby, that's not happening. So, and it's okay, but figure out your life. Do a little bit of an assessment of where you're wasting your time, right? Do we need to be doing all that scrolling, that social media, hanging out with people that they're not really your friends? Like, this is a good time. Like, what is it really important to you? Block down that time and say, I will commit to this bare minimum. If I have more time on that day, that's okay. I thought I was only going to have an hour a day, but today, every day, 7 days a week. But today, actually, I have an extra hour. So great. Instead of me putting 7 hours a week, I'm putting 8 hours a week. But be realistic. And then say, okay, I want to take this certification because I'm really interested in this material. I'm not comparing myself to anyone. Like, maybe this person was able to learn all this stuff in a month and they passed. But for me, because of my life, my schedule, everything else that's going on. I know that this is what's achievable, attainable in the timely manner. It's 2 months. If I dedicate, I don't know, 14 hours a week, which is 2 hours a day. Okay, that's realistic. And if you can put more, great. But then don't set yourself up for feeling that you're always behind the beat.
Yeah.
Right? Then the other thing that I want to say is that you create a plan. And then you want to commit to, like, let's say 30 minutes a day. And then incorporate that, which is basically what I just said before. You create a plan and you can say, okay, every day, according to my plan and my goals, I start working at 9 a.m. and I wake up at 5 a.m. and I have this time from 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. to dedicate to my studies. This is my plan, okay? And then in 2 months from now, I'm going to book that exam. And maybe if I have that exam booked and I feel like I can't do it, I'll reschedule it or whatever, but I have to have a plan, right? Even a bad plan, it's a good plan. And part of the plan can be even like, okay, what are the courses that I'm going to get? What kind of labs am I going to do? Do I have the gear? Like everything should be a little bit on your plan. Even if it's a 10-minute drafted plan, create a plan. And then you execute the plan in order to achieve the goal. And then you always need to remember that when things get really tough, you need to revisit your why. Because everybody looks cool on the social media saying, I passed the certification, I got this job, I did this, I did that. Nobody's telling, oh man, I'm struggling. I thought I was going to pass, but then I had a family emergency. I couldn't study. I couldn't do this. Or, you know, it was my friend's wedding and I went to the wedding and we had some drinks. And then the next day I was tired and I couldn't do anything. Then the next day, you need to have a why. Because when you have a why, you say, okay, life is getting tough. I got this deadline. Someone got sick in my family. I don't have time to deal with this. Why am I doing this course again? Oh, right. Yeah, because I love to build, because I want to get better at what I do. I want to improve my skills. When you have your why, when things go crazy, and I'll have stories in a bit to tell you, right? That's when you go like, okay, let me center myself in my goal again. Let's keep going, right?
Right.
Everything is falling apart. We are still here. We're still studying. We're still improving. It's very important. Then when things go wrong, you can always remember when people tell you that you're weird because you're studying, on 4th of July, everybody invited you to the barbecue and you're just doing laps around Prospect Park, listening to crazy voice memos of you talking about yourself, about serverless applications because you have a exam in 2 days. And that day I tracked 30,000 steps. Awesome.
Wow.
But
that's a lot of
the
steps.
The smell of steaks was epic because everybody's barbecuing. The whole thing was super avant-garde. They think you're weird, but I say, okay, this is my why. I want to be really good at what I do. After I pass this exam, I will go hang out with my friends. There will be another 4th of July. At this moment, I'm focused on my why. This is my priority. Then you remember, famous powerlifting coach that trained so many Olympic world record athletes and that invented crazy, incredible weightlifting machines that innovated the powerlifting world. When people would ask him, why are you doing all these things? Your body is broken up. There's no money in powerlifting. He would say, average people bring average results. You should never be average. Athletes should never be average. Students should never be average, right? So I use a little bit of him as my mantra. Average people bring average results. I study because I love it. And if that means that sometimes things are going crazy, I'm still focused on my why, right? And I want to be the best I can be, not because I have the external world pressure, because I'm passionate about what I do. Don't forget that. And then you can think about also when you feel frustrated that maybe you are not learning fast enough or you're not getting the information. I think about John Coltrane and about Tolstoy, right? When Joe Coltrane came in the 60s with Giant Steps, there was, you guys can Google Giant Steps, one of the most, it was the record that changed a sound in jazz in the 60s, right? Because before Coltrane came with an album, everybody was playing those cute notes and sound good and work. And then he came with the most risky, totally avant-garde, ahead of his years thing. And people were like, what is this? What is this? But they don't know that for 5 years, he was practicing one scale for 6 hours, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And he would come to people, and I know because I studied with people who play with him. He would come to him, people and say, hey, people would say, hey, John, what's going on? He'd be like, man, I'm so upset. And they're like, why? Because I'm practicing the skill and I cannot make it sound good. It took him 5 years to figure that out, right? Now, Tolstoy, it took him 13 years to write War and Peace. Like he kept writing drafts and then he would finish and then he would read a chapter and he would say, okay, this is not there yet. I have to rewrite it. I'm not getting there. So us as developers, I think that sometimes we want to do everything so fast. We want to learn so fast. But like really good stuff, you know, if it's really good learning or building like really good product, really good architecture, sometimes it's not going to happen like this. So just be patient with yourself. That's the thing.
Well, I
okay.
didn't know that about Tolstoy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was just looking it up. He began writing it. Well, actually, he finished writing it and it was published in 1869. So all of those rewrites, bro didn't even have a computer or a typewriter.
It was his wife. I'm telling, I am that nerd that took a War and Peace class with a Russian lady in college.
Wow.
I am that nerd. I love literature. I love reading, but I cannot read tech things. But what I learned, what's very inspiring, is that he wrote the book many times. And then people would read it and be like, this thing is amazing. And then he would read it back, it's like, it's not there yet. And then he would give it to his wife. She would read it. She would make edit notes. He would look at her notes. And then she would rewrite it by hand. And that was a whole process.
Wow.
And we don't think about this, but Tolstoy was the first bestseller author in the history of books in a moment that there was no social media, there was no press, there was no PR. He did it because his work was that good.
Well, now I think I'd actually like to read more about this. So thank you.
I know.
I actually really love nerdy facts like that. You know, it's great.
I know. So the point of me saying this in a tech, how to study tech presentation, right? Obviously, tech moves fast. We got AI, we got all that stuff. But a really good architecture is not going to be on the first draft, right? And sometimes when we're studying and we're trying to build something, just remember that it's never like, be patient with yourself. Like the masters took their time to iterate over things, right? That's my point. We're getting philosophical here, people.
No, but Amanda, you bring up a really good point. I mean, most people nowadays, they want to be perfect on the first try.
Once you have like your plan and you execute and you say, I'm going to dedicate this time and I realize that this is how I learn, then you iterate. You say, okay, you create a little retrospective and you say, I use these resources. Did they help me? Did they not help me? I use this methodology. Did it help me? What went well? Like if you were the scrum master of yourself, and then keep going, right? Don't stop. Say, okay, maybe I got the certification. Now I want to do a project and I want to write a blog about it. What would be my next certification? How can I collaborate with other people? Like, don't get stale. Say, yes, I got that pro certification. I'm good to go. Nah, keep going. Studying is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, make it fun. Gamify your studies. Fall in love with the process. I will give you an example. When I was studying for the Developer Associate certification from AWS, I created Lambda functions that were sending Mexican curse words to each other. And I was trying to encrypt that message in between one Lambda to the other and then decrypt and look at the JSON payload and see if the thing went through. And I was entertaining myself with that silly thing so bad. Like, hola chingón. And the other Lambda function will say, wait, ¿qué onda, marica? Like, the whole thing was so dumb, like, so not politically correct, so silly. But that got me going, you know? Like, I was making, like, make it fun, because it's all about the attitude. What's the difference when you, like, wake up early in the morning and say, oh, man, what a drag. I got to study these things because I have to pass certification. Whereas, like, I am so excited. Today, we are going to be doing push-ups and we are going to be memorizing EBS volume types per type of workload and how many IOPS each EBS volume will take. And if I can hold a plank while I'm saying all these things, then I know that I will be able to build some awesome architecture because I really know that stuff. Like, what's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like, and fall in love with the process. Maybe I have mental problems. I tell people all the time, I kind of addicted of that feeling of like, okay, I'm studying for the certification, or I am working on this mini project that I'm trying to figure out. And then it's like, you get to that point, it's like, oh my God, I take the practice test. I think I'm killing it. And then I got a 32%. And then you're reading the questions and you read all these docs and you get in this super horrible bad mood and you begin to think you're a loser, that the world's gonna end. And then somehow you pass the certification and then you feel like you're I feel like I'm the queen of the universe. Like, yes, I did it. I built this chatbot. The thing was so hard. I made it work. I wrote that code. But, you know, I fell in love with that process of going through. I'm excited at the beginning, and then I go through that struggle, and I'm hating life. And then I don't think I can do it, but then I make it. And, you know, it's fun, right? So fall in love with that process and be okay with thinking that sometimes things are not going to go right, and then learn from it. Now, okay, I'm talking about all this stuff. But like, how do you put all this stuff together? So I wanted to share with you guys some of scenarios. Like,
okay,
in a regular month, for example, right now, I don't have much going on. Okay, for example, this weekend I'm playing 4 Brother shows, but I adapt things. So let me tell you, like, a typical thing. Right now, I'm on recertification season because I have to recertify 6 certifications this year.
Whoa.
So this is what I'm doing. Like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I told you about my non-negotiables. I have to go to the gym 6 days a week, and I have to walk my 10,000 steps, and I have to do my meditation. Those are my non-negotiables. So what do? I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I have my little breakfast and I go to the gym. And depending on the day of my workout, if it's like yesterday, I had cardio recovery day. So instead of like jogging, I did an hour and a half on the elliptical trainer at zone 2 and 3, watching lectures, right? But when you watch those lectures, you're not passively watching the lectures. Like, watch a lecture, I pause, and I'm in the elliptical trainer. I'm keeping the heart rate, and I think about what was this lecture about? What are they talking? Can I imagine this architecture in my head? I am retaining this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then say, okay, then I go to work, I do my job, etc. And then in the evening, I'll take a practice test, and I feel horrible about myself. And what do? I do my secret weapon, and I'll show it to you guys. I record tons of voice memos, and I have thousands of those, as you can see here. I'm not sure. And it's basically me talking to myself, reading a question very slow, where I'm not trying to memorize the question from the practice test. I'm trying to see, can I train my mind to imagine what the question is asking me? What is the problem? Can I visualize this architecture in my head? And it works for coding too, you know. If you, I did stuff like this. If you walk down the street and then you record a voice memo of you reading Terraform code, and then you have to listen to the code. Can you imagine what the code is doing in your head while you listen to the code? It works for Python too. It's a game changer. Right. And then I have this collection of hours and hours of me blabbing and talking. Why did I get it wrong? Don't forget about this. This is the detail. This is what's the problem. This is what the answer. This is how you would fix it, etc., etc. Right? Then I incorporate that to my 10,000 steps. So every time I go for a walk, I could be going for a walk, listen to like some random music or maybe a random podcast. Instead, I listen to my annoying voice talking about these things. And you see, so I'm being time efficient because I'm going to the gym, I'm working out, but I'm still using that place to learn. Right? So how would that translate to someone that is not in my condition? Let's say you live in a place that you have to drive a lot and you have to drive your kids to school before you go to work. You drop your kids to school and then you have to drive 30 minutes to your job. Why can you not put some of your Udemy lectures on your phone, play in your car, and then you're listening to them, right? Instead of just you're driving, you're listening to a lecture, and you're thinking about that, you're being efficient with your time. So that's why I say I'm giving myself as an example, but adopt your lifestyle and think about all that planning into your studies so that you're not miserable.
Right.
Now, I want to give you guys an example when things don't go as planned, right? Because of life. A year ago, I got asked at the other company I worked if I would be interested in doing this challenge. They said, well, you know, we're having some issues with our AWS partnership and a little low on certifications. Would you mind taking a certification in 15 days? I was like, well, this is the issue. I have all the easy ones.
Yeah.
It's like I either take a really difficult specialty or the solutions architect professional, which I don't mind, but I can't do it in 15 days or I don't know. So they had just come out with the AWS database engineering, the associate, data engineering associate. And it's a topic that I was interested because I was doing data engineering stuff in GCP at the same time. So I was like, all right, let me see if I can do this. And that was the full-time job and the whole jazz, right? So at the same time, I work with this composer that writes this really, really, really impossible big band music and does these concerts. And he called me like 4 months in advance. And he had all these composers from different places in the world that submitted their compositions to play in this avant-garde big band. So it so happened that they sent me the music in advance. And music was really, really hard, and it would take a lot of time to practice. And I confess, I practiced everything, but I saw this one composition, and it was like all 8 notes, and I was like, oh, this stuff is easy. I'll just play it a little bit. I'll practice a little bit, and I'll be okay. So I show up at rehearsal. The performance is on a Saturday. The rehearsal's on a Thursday. It's a big band with 23 musicians playing really difficult, original, avant-garde music. Like you are sweating, like you're reading, you're thinking like a maniac, right? Everybody is dying. Just to tell you, and I think I'm gonna die because at the end of May I'm doing it again. This whole thing, and it's always original in music. So now you can say, okay, I can recycle the music. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I love those challenges. I love working with those guys. They're my friends. Like the core band, we're all friends. Like it's me, the trumpet player, the band leader. So it's always a thing, you know. We kill each other at rehearsal. We have some food after, and then 2 days after we have the gig, we do an extended sound check rehearsal, and then we have 2 hours to have some food, and then we play the gig, and it's like a friendship. It's fun. We challenge ourselves, right? Long story long, I am killing my brain learning, studying for the data engineering exam, and there's this rehearsal. I show up at the rehearsal. I practice a lot. There's really difficult technical stuff from another composer. And well, I practice everything. But when it came to that one composition that I thought, oh, that's easy. And I played it over and it sounded easy at my house. But together with everybody's music, the thing was impossible. We're in the middle of this rehearsal. Is this composer from Israel? I think he flew from Israel just for the performance. And he was playing piano. So he knew what was going on. He stops in the middle of the rehearsal. And he says that in front of like 23 musicians and some other people in the rehearsal room. He says, I think we're going to have to resume this the practice of the song because some of us did not do the homework and did not practice the music. And he's looking at me and I'm like mortifying. I'm dying. And I'm like, oh my God. And I can't say anything because he's right. I was not happening. So I felt terrible about myself. And I was so worried, like, how can I find time to do this full-time job, study for the certification, have to take the exam on Sunday, and honor the music? Because at the end of the day, I want to always like provide the best music I can. Like I can't like show up and not make these people sound bad. The guy flew from all over the world, like he wrote this impossible music, but we have to honor it. It doesn't matter, right? I legit, I feel like I spent like 8-9 hours just practicing that one thing over and over and over. Showed up on Saturday afternoon at sound check, extended sound check rehearsal. Everybody is dying in that big band because music is so hard. Played the 10 songs. I survived. The guy even looked at me after the composer said, hey, Amanda, thank you. I know you practice. Appreciate it. I was like, oh, yeah, that was easy. Like, he has no idea. I spent like 9 hours on this one song, which is fine. That makes me be a better musician, right? Now, we had 2 hours in between the sound check and the performance. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, they were all my friends. Hey, let's go relax our minds. We just practice really difficult music. Everybody's brain is fried. Let's go have some food. Let's chill out. Then we play the show. What did I do? Hey, folks, I'm sorry. I have to run some errands. For 2 hours, that's all I'm doing. I'm walking up and down in Chelsea, listening to my voice memos in data engineering mode exam like this, right? Yeah. It's not ideal, but I had to adjust it. And that's how life is. But that's why, like, you have to know your why, because when things go crazy, it would have been easy to be like, Yeah, whatever. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Let me just go eat food with my friends and then I'm going to play the show. No, I want to make sure that I'm focused. I'm 100% for my show, for my exam. Next day, I had the exam. I don't know. I wake up always early. I woke up super early. And I said, instead of taking the subway, I'm going to walk from Brooklyn all the way to the testing center in Manhattan. It was an hour and a half walk, crossing the bridge and doing everything, listening to my voice memos, thinking about glue and all the data engineering things. I show up, I take the exam, and I pass. But that's an example to say, we're always going to have a reason not to study or not to do, but how can we say let's adapt to life, right?
Right.
And then a third thing that I want to show as an example is that, for example, when you're traveling, you that's out of your routine, right? 2.5 years ago, I was invited by the Swiss diplomats and the European Union to go do a humanitarian tour in Sri Lanka to teach music and for places from the where the victims of the Tamil genocide were there and in semi war zones, right? And I took PTO for that. I had vacation. The people in the company I worked, they were very beautiful. They gave me 2 weeks off to go to Sri Lanka to do the thing. But I could have said, I'm off. I don't need to worry about my studies and whatever. But then I said, this is going to be an excellent opportunity to read all the KMS white papers because then I can study for the security exam. So I knew it was going to be an 18-hour flight from New York to Doha, Qatar, and then 7 hours to Colombo, which is the capital of Sri Lanka. And then I asked the people that were organizing the tour in Sri Lanka, what's the vibe with all the cities that were playing? And they said, well, the vibe is the following, because Sri Lanka has only a small highway because everything was bombed. You're going to have patience because we have to drive you through local routes. And then a trip that would take like 2 hours usually takes 10. So I was like, great. Thanks for letting me know. I downloaded all my Udemy lectures on my phone. And I bought a little thing for the van to hold the phone in the seat, And then I watched all my security lectures from there. It was like, great. I'm reading all the white papers. I'm doing everything like this. And then when I came back, all I had to do was do the labs and take the exam and pass the exam. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just using myself as an example, but how can the people here that want to be efficient with their studies adapt to life? Because life's real. And that's that. And then I had tons of resources to the people, and I opened to some Q&As.
I'll get your resources out of the slide deck, and I'll put it into the show notes when I edit this for YouTube.
Oh, yeah. But some of them are like, I try to make just like the free and good stuff.
Nice.
That was really great. And I know you were saying that you don't have children, right? Like you're not married, but like you have a very, very active life. When you were talking about getting up at 5 a.m.
every day.
I don't F with that. I don't
oh my God. This morning, I was up at 5 a.m. I was watching my Adrian Cantrell courses, lectures. And listen, he was talking to me about cats and all those cool things that he does.
Yep.
And then we were swinging that kettlebell. We were swinging it. By the time I showed up at 9 a.m., I had all those endorphins, and I am ready to rock. Let's build awesome things with Datadog. Let's go.
I am up.
I do have a question.
I'm flying somewhere.
What's the question?
I do have a question. What time do you go to sleep at night?
Usually 11.
Okay, so your solution is study every. No, I'm kidding.
No.
You are a beast, Amanda. You have an amazing work ethic.
Thank you.
I mean, that's very, very commendable, and inspiring too. I'm actually in the process of studying myself, and what really resonated with me is you mentioned CI/CD your life. Make sure iterate over your current processes and refine them, make them better. There's plenty of times when I'm sitting there scrolling through YouTube shorts or trying to get like video ideas or something like that when I could be doing something a little bit more productive. But when you mentioned do 30 minutes a day instead of like cramming it all in for like a couple of hours,
it's never gonna work.
That really is something that I need to start doing better.
But that's a musician thing, like when you want to learn a musical instrument, any good music teacher is gonna tell you, listen, you're not gonna learn everything 4 hours on a Saturday.
Right.
You have to do 30 minutes a day, and you have to say, okay, out of those 30 minutes, I'm going to do 10 minutes of technique, 10 minutes of skills, and then 10 minutes I'm going to practice a song. If you have more time, then work on your weaknesses. And then if you have more time, do the fun. Because at some point, everything is going to get together and you're going to have fun.
Yeah.
But I think that I am full of little crazy demonic voices inside my head that want to tell me, why don't you just watch Netflix? Why don't you go scroll on Instagram? Of course I want to do that, right? But I know that if I succumb to it, I will become an unhappy person because I don't study tech because I have to. I do it because I love it. That's my why. And that's awesome. What I want people to think about that, right? I volunteer sometimes with a nonprofit organization that helps women get into tech. And I coach them how to study for the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. And I deal with a lot of that, like they're moms that just had kids and they're working part-time, but they have to take care of their kids full-time. And I say, okay, let's figure out a study plan that's feasible for you. When do your kids go take a nap? When do you drop your kids in school? Let's figure this out. I don't have kids. I have music, right? Everybody's always going to have an excuse not to do study or do whatever they want to do because chasing a dream and a big goal is hard. It's much easier to be like, I just want to be on the couch, hang out with my friends.
Yeah. Yep.
Talk on the phone.
I understand. Yeah.
Text whoever you need to text. All right.
Yeah.
I did have one quick question for you, Amanda.
Yes.
I know you said 30 minutes, but I know, like, for me, I can't sit for 30 minutes and just study something straight. I usually like to break it up in chunks. So I'll study for like 10 minutes, take a minute, and then, just, okay, all right, jump back into it for the next 10 minutes. Do you do something like that, or do you just go straight? But
maybe that's a suggestion. Maybe consider taking that learning style thing, because maybe you might have the same issue that I have. I'm a very hyper person. Like, do not make me sit for 30 minutes and read a white paper unless I'm flying to Sri Lanka, okay? Maybe, actually made a friend on my trip back on the flight back from the capital of Sri Lanka to Qatar. It was 7 hours because I'm sitting reading the KMS white paper, and this guy looks at me, excuse me, do you work at AWS? I go like, no, I'm studying for the security specialty. He's like, oh, that is so cool. I'm a network engineering and I'm flying to Kenya because I'm building this full networking thing in Azure for this Kenyan company, and I'm Sri Lanka. So it was actually super epic. But maybe, Roger, something I could suggest to you is that you might benefit from doing the whole walking and listening, right? Maybe that will work for you. If it's either like, can I listen to a lecture from Udemy or from whatever you're studying and try to visualize what they're saying?
No.
Or can I record myself a voice memo and listen to it? Also, for example, it's on my resources. GCP, they had this podcast. They haven't been updating it for a while, but it's pretty good if you want to learn GCP, called the Google Cloud Reader, that they read their blogs and their docs, and you can just listen to it. When I got thrown in this project that I did absolutely nothing about GCP and I had to do all these crazy big query things, your girl was doing laps in the park listening to that podcast. And it was because you know what I'm saying, Roger? Like, I think that I think that maybe try that. Can you walk for 30 minutes? But I'm not saying like listening, but not listening. I'm saying
active listening,
focusing. That's it. Might be that you might retain information better, right?
Good.
That's my suggestion.
I'll check that out. Thank you.
Awesome.
And we are at time.
Yeah, we need to wrap.
I had to go to sleep.
Yeah, you do. You've got to get up in like 3 hours
to start studying again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amanda, Ruzza, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you, Amanda.
Always a pleasure. And I will see you in DC, and members of the audience, we will see you again next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.